Okay, so the next part of our fall semester spreadsheet is our screen sizes. So it was aspect ratios. I think it called aspect ratios in the media. And basically we had this thing that we had an aspect ratio of a screen. So we're looking at screen size. Yay. When you buy or when you get phones and specifically TVs or computer monitors, it gives you the size, but the size that it gives you is the diagonal. But it also gives you something called an aspect ratio. And the aspect ratio is it's a comparison of the width to the height. The standard normal format right now, the standard format is 16:9. It used to be 4:3. So that means that all of your screens are a multiple, not an even multiple, but it's like a scaled up version of 16 wide and 9 high. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our aspect ratio and the measure of the diagonal to calculate the dimensions of like a TV or any kind of a screen. So what I'm going to do, I had already been playing with this yesterday. Okay, so my aspect ratio is 16:9, so I'm going to put that here, 16:9. Let's say I'm looking at a TV that's 55 inches, that like the box says 55 inches. Well, I would kind of think that if I was looking at a TV and it said 55 inches, I always thought that, well, okay, well, that's how wide it is. But that's not how wide it is. That's how wide across on the diagonal that it is. But I need to know how wide it is because I want to know if it's going to fit in the spot that I have for it. So, okay, my diagonal is 55. Now I want my width and my height. So the first thing we're going to have to do is we need to look at these like similar triangles and we're going to compare them. So this one, on the smaller one, we know two of the dimensions, right? We know that this is 16, this is 9, but we don't know the diagonal. On the big one, which is our TV, we know the diagonal, but we don't know how wide it is and we don't know how high it is. And we need to somehow use these three pieces of information to figure that out. The first thing we want to do is we want to find this little small diagonal. So we're going to use the Pythagorean Theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. In this case, it'd be like w squared plus h squared equals c squared. So if I have this, c squared equals w squared plus h squared, I'm going to erase that in a minute. And notice it's not really up there because, yeah. So that means that what I want is I want c, I don't want c squared. So if I have squared and I want to get rid of that, I take the square root of both sides. So my c value is going to be the square root of my w squared plus my h squared. So I go, okay, equals. Now we're going to use our square root function, which is SQRT. And that's the same in Excel, Google Sheets, Apple numbers. They all use SQRT. Open parentheses. So notice I put the equals first because it told me, because that tells it, hey, wake up, we're going to do math. And this tells us our function. So now I want a squared, which is this. So I'm going to go this one. Shift 6 gives me the little caret raised to the power of thing, 2, plus, and then I want this one squared, so Shift 6, 2, close parentheses, and that gives me this. So my diagonal for this aspect ratio is 18.3575, whatever. If I change this now, like let's say I'm at my grandparents' house and they have an old school TV, the aspect ratio is 4:3. If I put 4 here and 3 here, it automatically updates to 5. This is why we refer back instead of putting in numbers. 16, 9, okay. So now we have this right here. Well, since these are similar triangles, the way similar triangles work is that the angles are all the same. So then to get from this one to this one, everything is multiplied by the same thing. So if you're scaling up, and let's say this one is scaled up by 2, then what that means is you take this one times 2 gives you that. This one times 2 gives you that. This one times 2 gives you that. So the similar sides are all multiplied by the same scale factor. So now, because we know the c, we know 2 similar sides. So we can find the scale factor. We just take the big similar side, or the second similar side. If we're scaling up, it'll be the bigger one. If we're scaling down, and it'll be smaller. But we take the second one, we divide it by the first one. So we're scaling up, so we go equals our d value divided by our c value. So that gives me a scale factor of almost 3. So then the rest of it's just plug and play, right? We want to know, since this one, you're multiplying by that to get this, then you multiply by the same thing to go from here to here and to go from here to here. So I just go equals my scale factor times my, let's see, I'm doing width, so I'd click on that. So then same thing for the, oh wait, I divided, didn't I? Oh, see, I got a little super small number. That doesn't make sense that my TV would be less than an inch, right? So you got to use your common sense when you're looking at things. If it gives you a number, like the output's only as good as the input. So like computer people say garbage in, garbage out, right? So if I put in a wrong formula, it's going to give me an answer, but it doesn't make any sense. You got to look at it to see if it makes sense. In this case, that doesn't make any sense. So if I look, see, I divided, I should have multiplied. So I just go change that. That makes much more sense. If a computer, I mean, if a TV is 55 inches across, there's no way that's going to be like less than an inch wide. Okay, same thing with my H. I'm going to go equals scale factor times my height. Ta-da! So now those are the dimensions of my big TV. So even though it said 55 inches, it's really 47.94 inches wide and 26.96 tall. So what I would probably do is I would make these my answers. I'm going to I want to round. I don't need that many decimals. I can't measure that much with like a little measuring tape. So I'm going to do this to like 1 decimal point. So again, I just went up to this little thing right here, decreases decimal places, and go here, do the same thing. I mean, really, like with the tools that I have to measure at home, I probably wouldn't even get 1/10 of an inch, maybe 1/8, but okay, so I'll leave that. Now, since those are my answers, I'm going to go to here. I am going to put a box around it, and I'm going to call it done. One last thing right here, because this is in inches, I went ahead and put inches here, and for my units, I just referred back to that. So I put equals, and I clicked on this. That way, if this happened to be feet, so like say you're talking about a movie screen, then that'll change the units automatically. You don't have to. I just wanted to. So there's that. Also, like I would probably make this line stretch across the whole thing. And we're done. So that's your screen sizes and aspect ratios and screen sizes.